And welcome everyone to God's Views on Political News. It's so great to have you here today. And Bill, it's great to see you back today.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back. We've been out in the wilderness for over a week. So anyway, yeah, we're glad to be back. And I trust everything went well last week.
Actually, it did. By some miracle, it did.
Yeah, so see, you can do this without me. You know?
Yeah, right. Dawn, good hello to you. Robin, hello to you. Robin saying hello, Bill and Susan. And we're seeing other people come in, and I'm sure they want to know if you saw any bear when you're out in the wilderness there. Teresa saying hello.
No, didn't see any bear. Yeah, we weren't that far out into the wilderness. We did see some deer, things like that, and some turkey, but I see that pretty much every day at my house, but where I live. But it was really nice where we were at, and it was picturesque. It was along a lake here in southeast Tennessee, and the fall colors are coming in. The cool weather came in. We had a couple of overnight rain showers, but man, other than that, it was great weather, crystal clear skies, and had a great time with a great bunch of people, and so it was good. It was good. I was really, really busy. Beth and I were running like crazy, as were some others that were helping us, but all in all, we had a great time.
Well, next year we'll just have to have that out in California. We'll be all by the beach. We'll have everybody there. It'll be a great time.
Right. Okay.
Keep dreaming.
Whatever you say.
Well, it sure beats kind of talking about the subject at hand, which is the craziness going on in our world. But I wanted to start off talking about the impeachment of President Trump that's going on, that the deliberate impeachment and trying to unseat a duly elected president. Let me just add that on there too.
Well, I'm going to confess that I intentionally did not stay up to date on what was going on. So, and boy, did I have such peace.
Yeah.
We can't stick our head in the sand. I understand that, but I did take a little break from it. But anyway, back to the point. Is this even really an impeachment inquiry officially, because there's been no vote? This is I think they're just biding their time trying to generate public support for something that they know that right now they don't have, but that's just me.
It's hard to figure out what's going on. It really is. You probably missed this too, but Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff went on the weekend. They flew over to Jordan because why? To me, it's kind of like, well, we want to go over there. There's so much going on in Syria, and the president's pulling out, and he shouldn't have done that, and we want to see what's going on. It kind of makes me wonder why they're in Jordan. I know that a lot of the Syrians went over to Jordan to escape what was going on in Syria. And I wonder if it's Nancy trying to play the hero, like, oh, look, we're going to free all those people in Jordan now and let them go back to Syria, or they would be able to go back, but for what the president did over in Syria, and we'll use that against him in impeachment. Because look at, Jordan can't live the life that they should live because of what this president's doing over in Syria. I mean, do you think it could be something like that?
I don't know. Like you said, I was disconnected, and so I didn't know about this.
They didn't say why they were going. They just said, we're going over, we're going to Jordan. They've met with somebody in Jordan. They can't speak for the United States on behalf of the United States when they're there.
I don't know. Maybe Jordan will become the new Ukraine. Who knows? I don't know.
But I wonder about that. You do wonder about that. Now, Robin said, if you have any problems with Periscope freezing, go to YouTube to watch Bill and Susan. So far, so good. Fingers crossed. Linda said, finally got you. Shalom, guys. Linda Smith. Now, White Wolf is saying, what about the Logan Act violation? The thing with that, White Wolf, is that there's only been like somebody charged under the Logan Act, I don't know, about 100 and some years ago. So the chances of having Schiff and Pelosi and even a Democrat charged with anything these days, and the way it's going, is very slim to none. So we even had John Kerry, remember, that went over to Iran and tried to get the nuclear deal, the nuclear agreement, back into place, and that wasn't considered a Logan Act, and that was even when Kerry was no longer in government. So I don't think that's going to happen. And Bill, I don't know if you know this, but when Pelosi went over to Jordan, her brother died.
Right, I did hear about that. I heard about the brother dying.
Second person from Maryland who died, like in the same week.
Yeah, I did hear about Elijah Cummings dying too. Interesting. But now back to the whole Jordan thing. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, nothing to go on here other than just, why in the world would they be going? It makes me wonder if they're not looking into what the prospective Mideast peace plan is that Kushner's been working on, and how that might be used as some kind of angle that they could work in this whole impeachment thing. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just kind of odd for them to do that. And they took 9 people with them. So 9 people on taxpayer dollar went over to Jordan for the weekend. Now, I don't know if she's back because of her brother, passing away, or how long they're there, but we've paid for that. The State Department has to allow them to go and sign off on it. But, it's not unusual for them to take trips. It's not unusual for them to make us pay for it. But when is enough going to be enough? Now, looking at what happened here yesterday, there was they tried to censure Adam Schiff, for the lies that the quote unquote parody that he says that he said during the when I forget which House meeting it was, which hearing it was. But
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, he totally made up what the president said and called it a parody, but he didn't really explain to the listening audience, to the general public, that was really a parody.
Well, he gave the news media sound bites to use. And and come out later and say it's a parody, knowing full well that there were going to be some news media that would release it as it was, as if it happened, because they depend on the ignorance of the populace, and the populace accommodates them in that regard, because just most people have no idea. They don't stay that in tune with what's actually going on. So they know this. They're pretty shrewd in how they do these things.
Now, White Wolf said, did Pelosi fly private? I doubt that very seriously, taking a delegation of 9 people, but I don't know, because there's nothing saying when they left, how they got there, where they got back, who they saw one person. That was about it. I mean, we're not told anything that's going on, and I know that's deliberate. It's just, for example, like all these meetings that have been going on these hearings, these are closed door, kind of like basement secret hearings that have been going on.
That in of itself should be enough for people to, raise a stink about.
Yeah.
That to me is just absolutely amazing that people are not raising concerns about that. I mean, this is like the health care bill. We got to pass it to see what's in it. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and then Karen wants to know, were they all Dems that went over to Jordan? There was one, I think it was Thornberry, who's not going to be seeking re-election, a Republican, who went with them. So you had, they could call it a bipartisan trip, taking this one turncoat, I say, over there with them to Jordan, because I probably was more on their side than on ours. I would have felt much better had they visited Israel, Linda said. They hide and conspire. Well, not only are they down in the basement, in the back, not telling anybody, but they're not releasing any transcripts to Republicans. If they're allowing Republicans to see transcripts at all, they're requiring that a Democrat be there with them when they are viewing the transcript. They're not allowing the attorneys for the president to be there or question anybody or know what's going on. All of this, none of this was done during the Nixon impeachment or the Clinton impeachment. And it was voted on by the full Congress before they even went through the process.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This, in my view, this isn't even, they may label it impeachment, but this isn't impeachment. This is we're going to use that word, and we're going to do our dirty work, and we're going to just kind of keep everything under wraps, because if everything comes out like it has in times past, then it doesn't help our case, it hurts our case. So we're going to keep it all secret until we can kind of know what's what here. We're going to label it impeachment. That gives it some sense of legitimacy, at least to the uninformed populace, and they think that this is what's going on, and it plants seeds in their mind that the president is corrupt and he's a Nixon or this, that, or the other. So very shrewd in how they're doing all of this. My hope is, my prayer is, that if what they're engaged in is what it seems to be, corrupt, clandestine, subversive, dare I say, even treasonous. If it is what it appears to be, my hope and prayer is that the Father in heaven will blow it up. And when it blows up, the shrapnel, it hits everybody it's supposed to hit and brings things to light. And I'm using shrapnel as a metaphor, okay? But that's my hope and prayer. I keep going back to something you and I've talked about a lot, and that is Haman building his own gallows.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Maddie says in California, we hate the orange man, and I'd have to disagree wholeheartedly, Maddie. In California, we very much love Donald Trump. Not everybody in California, the ones that are Democrats, but people like myself who live in California absolutely respect this president. Now, Dawn said she also Nancy went to Afghanistan and then stopped on to Jordan. I think she's looking for a way to try to undermine the president. Absolutely. Linda wants to know, is there anything that the judicial system can do? Yeah, but do you trust the judicial system at this point? You know, I mean, it's really scary. And I'm not sure, when there's nothing formal, there's no impeachment process, there's not even an impeachment inquiry that's been a formalized, voted on congressional proceeding, what can the court do? And they do that, I think they did that intentionally.
That's what I'm saying. You know, they if they go official here, if they make it official, if they actually follow House rules and do what they're supposed to do, then it's going to expose I think, the corrupt nature of this whole thing. And as I said, perhaps even subversive and treasonous nature of this whole thing. And back to the lady's orange man comment, if you hate him, I don't know why you're on this program.
Exactly.
You might not be very comfortable here. Because we don't hate anybody. We hate things people do. We hate behavior. We hate lifestyles and things that are unbiblical. But we don't hate anybody, don't wish ill will on anybody. So I'm not sure you're going to find a comfortable, safe place here, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that, we've been watching, I think President Trump is coming to that point where no matter what he says, the left is ready just to pounce on him. He talked about the other day about the emoluments clause, and he said this during a little hearing yesterday, and he was being very honest about how he had wanted to have the G7 at Doral. And he had even gone to the point that he was going to have it for free, that he would throw it for free, because Doral was that he owns, was a great place. It was near the airport. Everybody could have their own separate rooms and their own separate places to meet and all that. And he said, I don't get paid. I $400,000 salary. I don't get paid for that. Then he went on to talk about the emoluments clause. And he was saying, the phony emoluments clause. And what he meant was that the people that were sitting there, they were bringing up the phony emoluments clause argument. And he made that point by saying George Washington had 2 desks in the White House. One was for when he was acting as president, and one was when he was running his business. So he was trying to make that a point. And immediately when he said that, it went out in the news that the president called the emoluments clause phony. So they jumped on that, spun it, and went against him like, oh, he's talking down about the Constitution. They did another one this morning when he came out and he said this tweet. He said, let's see. So someday, if a Democrat becomes president and the Republicans win the House, even by a tiny margin, they can impeach the president without due process or fairness or any legal rights. All Republicans must remember what they are witnessing here, a lynching, but we won't win. And immediately the left was saying, "Oh, you're comparing this to a lynching. You can't do that." So every single word that he says now is suspect to them.
Again, I go back to something I've said over and over. Donald Trump is, however this turns out, Donald Trump, if nothing else, has shown and demonstrated just by his presence, just by opening his mouth, just by having a Twitter account, just how vile, corrupt, how superficial Washington really is, and the people who run this country. And by the way, that's not just Democrats.
Right.
There's a lot of people with R's behind their name that would fit into that category as well.
Mitt Romney.
Yeah. It was that telepathy thing going on, right?
I know.
Anyway, he is to progressives and liberals and deep state and whatever other term you want to use, he is to them what Jerusalem is to the nations. He is a source of stumbling. He is a trembling cup to them. And he makes them insane, or he makes them act insanely.
More insane.
Yeah, right. And and that's not to give him a free pass on everything he does or says.
Right.
I'm just saying that, it has really just brought this to the forefront. This is who and what we are, and it does not bode well for the nation. And a lot of people think that they're going to save democracy if they can get Trump out of there. Personally, I hope democracy goes into the rubbish bin and never rises its head again, because we need to be restored back to a constitutional republic, and there's a huge, huge difference. But of course, again, the populace, most of them are ignorant of that. They buy into this, and so this whole thing about saving democracy to me is you're saying you're attacking the republic. And that's why you're going to bring out people like you and me who are going to speak out against these things. And so he's exposing all that, is what I'm trying to say, just by being there. Did he set out to expose it? I don't know. I really don't know if that was his motivation or not. But I'm telling you, that's what's going on. But here's why it doesn't bode well. Because we are a divided nation. And the Messiah said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's going to be one thing or it's going to be the other. That's where we're at right now.
Well, and I think, the president, when he was talking yesterday, he really he brought it on home, saying, I'm doing this for the American public. I'm doing this for my country. And he said, I've lost between $2 and $5 billion being the president. And he says, I don't care, because I wanted to do this for my country. I've never heard a president talk like that. I'm sorry. I've just never heard that. And it's wonderful to hear that.
Well, and I, that's one of the things that I do admire and respect about the man, even if he is to some people orange, but he's not green.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have that greedy thing going on. Apparently, he gives his salary away. He's lost, as you just mentioned, billions of dollars, while some of these other people are growing richer and richer. The Obamas I read the other day are, multi-millionaires, and they weren't before they went into the White House. How did that happen? So it's just, again, it's exposing just how corrupt things really are. And as believers, I realize we have to grapple with the political element, but we should never lose sight of that we're in a spiritual war here. This is for the soul of our nation. And we need to be provoked to pray as never before. There's a lot to be lost here.
Yes. Not only the Republic, but Christian principles, and we see that almost every day being attacked now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Linda says if he keeps on the defense and skirts his plan, he will take the bait they want. Tim says MSM dissects every word of his tweets and they all agree what they all will attack him with. Shirley Metzler said, I sure hope you all don't get so tired of the violence the media spins so as to discontinue this program. What you share comes across as a breath of freshness to me. Thank you. Thank you, Shirley.
Well, thank you, Shirley. That's very nice. Probably more so Susan than me, but sometimes it gets a little like, got to talk about some of this stuff again. Anyway.
Well, that's why I take Wednesdays off. I have to get away from it one day, and even then I have a hard time doing it. But what I always come back around to is that it brings me back to God. It really does, because I know that what the politics and the chaos that's going on in the politics is a reflection of what is going on in our world. And the only way to break that chaos is through God. And so it brings me back. And so maybe that's what a lot of it is. And I, talking about praying, I pray Psalm 143 on a daily basis, and especially Psalm 143 verse 12. And everybody can go later and see what that is and see why I pray that. And I think that it is really coming to fruition. Amy said, my thought is that we may as well go for it now, because if they ever win, they will not stop until they reduce him to a pauper. They will reduce this country to a pauper if they win. They have clearly set forth their agenda and what they want to do in this country to bring it to its knees, to bring it to socialism and communism, open the borders. They have come right out and said, there's no guesswork. This is what they will do if given the opportunity.
Well, what's his name? O'Rourke? The guy from
Beta. Yeah, Robert
Francis.
Robert Francis.
I mean, how could you get any more blatant, as far as, a Marxist, communist, totalitarian view? Yeah, we will come and take your weapons. We will do this. We will do that, and you will comply. I mean, that's, I don't think you can be any plainer than that.
No. White Wolf said, I can't imagine God brought us to this point, this far to abandon us now. Durham hopefully will pan out for justice. Let's hope so. But, again, God, his justice is going to be different than what we think justice should be. Not saying that it isn't going to work out, but don't be surprised if it's a little different than what you thought.
I would Maggie, be a little surprised if it was anything like what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Maggie said, I pray for his continued strength. I do not know his relationship with the Father, but I see his heart and things he says in the quieter moments. Sarah said, the thing that makes me trust the president is the fact that he doesn't speak or act like a politician. He goes off script and refuses to be in monetary debt to anybody. Exactly, Sarah. Teresa said, I don't know how Susan does it. It would be depressing to me to have to read so much negativity. May the Lord bless you. Thank you. It does get a little wearing on me. It really does. And again, it does bring me back to God, because sometimes I think when I read it, I get so overwhelmed and thinking, gosh, there's, what are we going to do? And there's not, but God reminds me, but God. And so God, it's his plan, not mine.
Well, I was talking with somebody this morning about something totally disconnected to this, but the principle still applies. To have peace, sometimes you have to go to war. Mm-hmm. The absence of conflict doesn't mean peace. So right. Again, sometimes you have to go to war in order to have peace. And so I won't pretend to know what God's plan for this nation is and what he has intended for its future. I just know that he has a good plan in store for his people. And yes. We are at war. Not just politically speaking, we're at war spiritually, and that's the more important, yes. Bigger issue at hand. And to have peace, sometimes we have to wage war. Now, as a believer, we have the promise that our Father goes before us. The Messiah said, I'm never going to leave you nor forsake you. We're going to go through trials. We're going to go through tests. We're going to go through battles. We're going to be embroiled in a war. And what we're really after here is the hearts and lives of people who are in captivity, that is spiritual bondage, and don't even realize it. And if we have to get involved in the political process and talk about these things to interject spiritual concepts and issues into that conversation, and that is what frees them, then maybe that's what the Father has us doing and others like us doing, talking about these things, because we always try to bring it back to what is the Father saying through all these things, or what should we take away from all these things? How should we respond as believers to all these things? And who knows, that might be the very thing that frees some of these people who are in spiritual bondage.
Absolutely. Now, Dawn said it does me as well, and I have to step away from it sometimes. Just curious, do you believe that Hillary will enter the race? Do you want to answer that?
You know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that there is anybody on that side right now who is pulling away and is the people's choice, and I think they're all a bunch of nuts. The one that makes, this is going to sound awful, the most sense on that side is Tulsi Gabbard, but you know, she's a liberal too. You know, I know she was in the military. I know she, you know, served, and hats off to her on that. You know, I know that Hillary's after her, so that makes me think that maybe Hillary sees that, you know, this is the only sensible one. I need to get her out of the way so I can step into this circus and pick up the baton again. I could see it happening, but I don't know.
Dennis said, I feel certain that Donald Trump will win in 2020, but what happens after that? As I see it, and I hope I'm wrong, it's only a matter of time. Teresa said, we know who will win this war in the end, and that's what we have to keep focused on. Barry Nicole Cruz Reyes, watching in Illinois, how are you? Well said. The country was so united while we were fighting World War II. That is why I love this program. Linda said, there can be peace during wartime. There can be peace during wartime when you are in a relationship with God. That's what I believe. RLU said corruption is not only waking us up to prayer, but getting us back to influencing seven mina. I don't know what that means, but of culture. I don't know. Maybe that was you wrote something else.
Maybe that was autocorrect.
Maybe it was autocorrect. Let's talk a little bit, because we kind of missed some things up there, but I wanted to, before we go into our next topic, we have some people like Photo One, if you have that, Brandon, Chris Wallace, who's been coming out and saying there's he's as bad as the left, saying, 20% chance President Trump is removed from office. And I have that on somebody who told me, somebody told me this, and good authority. And then we have Greta Van Susteren, who came out in tweet one, who basically told him, he should have known better than to say that. I mean, he's sounding, just like the people on the left, doing the same thing, making stuff up, and they don't really care.
Well, 20% chance that would happen means there's an 80% chance it won't.
Only if you don't use Common Core, I think you can arrive at that. But
yeah, well, Chris Wallace had a father by the name of Mike Wallace, if I recall. Well, the fruit don't fall very far from the tree, does it?
Oh my gosh! Well, and then we have Romney, who is not helping anything. I think he came out as Pierre Delecto. I think that's the name.
I caught wind of that. I have no idea what everyone's talking about because, like I said, I've been out away from things. But well, I remember back when he ran, and I went to the polls, and I can't say I voted for Romney. I voted against Obama.
Yeah.
But, I'm kind of wondering I regret doing that. I'll just put it that way. I regret doing that, because he's really coming this, even-keeled, wholesome man that everybody's built him up to be. He seems to be just as subversive and just as icky and petty as any politician that's in Washington.
Well, he had this private account where it wasn't private to begin with, but it was Pierre. He called himself Pierre Delecto, whatever that means. Kind of sounds like Carlos Danger to me with Anthony Weiner, but and so what he was doing, he was going out there and liking all these things that people were saying against the president. He was saying some things against the president himself because nobody knew it was Mitt Romney. And then when he was found out, suddenly it's private, it's no longer there. You can't get to it or whatever. My thing is, what a coward is the first thing that comes to my mind. And I think I'm hopefully that Romney is going to be voted out as soon as we can get rid of him. He was needed because we needed somebody in that seat, and it was a surefire that a Republican would win it if he got it. But now we need him out because he is
Yeah.
no use to us.
Well, I mean, he's subversive in terms of, he's giving
He's horrible.
ammunition to the other side. He's presenting the persona that even the Republicans don't believe that Trump should be the president. That's how I interpret it anyway. In other words, he's become the new John McCain.
Yes, along with Lindsey Graham, who goes back and forth.
Yeah,
So
well, he waffles back on some things, but
yeah.
I would say that Romney is in the top tier of those that it would be better if we had somebody a little bit more trustworthy in a conservative sense, as a senator
Absolutely.
from Utah who lives in Massachusetts.
Linda said, I've begun to know that it's a spiritual battle and many are falling to their knees because this is so difficult to deal with. Cheryl says, hallelujah to keeping your eye on the Lord. Dawn said, Utah not too keen on him, so he'll probably get voted out next election. And Robin said, I think most of us were voting against Obama, me included. Mittens Romney has turned rhino, Cheryl said. I think he was always a rhino, Cheryl. He's just coming out more and everybody's seeing it. Mitt asked to be Secretary of State. Can you imagine? No, I can't. That was from White Wolf. And hi from South Africa. Hi, Karen. Glad that you are here with us today. After the censure didn't work yesterday, there were a couple of comments that came out, and I wanted to read them to you. McCarthy said each member of Congress must uphold a high standard of honesty and integrity. When it comes to matters of our national security, that responsibility is even greater. Chairman Schiff has fallen short in his duty, from claiming he had evidence of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign to covering up his committee's relationship with the whistleblower. He's demonstrated a pattern of lying to the American people on matters of intelligence. Nancy fired back with, our country is extremely well served by his serious, smart, and strategic leadership to protect our elections, talking about Schiff, national security, and democracy, which sadly stands in stark contrast to Republicans in the Congress who cover up the truth, look the other way when the president invites foreign governments to interfere in our elections, and vote against legislation to secure the ballot from foreign attacks. And Schiff finally, channeling his best, former FBI Director James Comey's most arrogant of tweets, those are my words, not anybody else's, he said, it will be said of House Republicans, when they found they lacked the courage to confront the most dangerous and unethical president in American history, they consoled themselves by attacking those who did. Ay, ay, ay. So, anyway, that sounds just as dramatic as a James Comey, and so that's what his little thing he had to say. Linda said, the longer they stay in Washington, the less connected they are to the people. Don said, I wonder when they're going to add a rubber room to the Democratic wing in Congress. Should be any day now. It's long overdue. So, all right. So that kind of wraps up the impeachment inquiry that doesn't exist, that the Democrats are using to go after the president. So I think, instead of sort of to summarize, right now, our best weapon is the full armor of God. I really do believe that, because it doesn't appear right now, that the House Republicans are kind of sort of doing stuff. This was their first kind of sort of move to try to censure Adam Schiff that they've done so far. They need to do far more. But honestly, I don't think we're going to see that really all that much from the Republicans.
Yeah, on one hand, I don't understand that. On the other hand, maybe their strategy, if we can call it that, is, or maybe it's strategery, but is to let the people see how the Democrats haven't done one thing. This is all they're doing. This is it. Mm-hmm. This haven't
is all they're doing,
done anything.
Yeah.
If you had an informed electorate, and I'm not saying we do or don't, I'm just saying if we did, maybe that would work, if that is in fact their strategy. If it's just that, we got to go to a dinner party with these folks tonight, so we don't want to make it, uncomfortable and awkward, then, I don't know. I don't really understand it. But I want to go back to something else you said. We need to every day put on the full armor of God. We also need to keep this in mind. Adam Schiff and Bill Cloud, Susan Knowles and Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, I go on and on and on. Every one of us, one day, will have to stand before the Almighty, and we'll have to give an account. You may escape justice here. You may get one over on everybody for a lifetime here, but there will be one day when the books will be open and everything will be exposed. Every idle word spoken will be addressed, and you and I will not have anything to hide behind. Adam Schiff will not have anyone to hide behind. Where there will be no media and press to give anyone cover. Everything will be opened up, and we'll have to give an account for God. And so as believers, we need to keep that in mind as we go forward, wearing the full armor of God, realizing who and why, who we're doing this for, why we're doing this, what we're supposed to be doing, with an eye on the fact that we will all have to stand before God and give an account of how we conducted ourselves. So let's keep that in the forefront and not be drawn into, as it is easy to do when we talk about these things, wishing hateful things, right, vengeful things on people that we don't particularly like. I don't like Adam Schiff. I don't like him. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I could, have a long, long list of people I don't like. But I can't allow myself to be drawn into the trap of wishing vengeance on them or wishing ill on them. I have to keep in mind that I'm going to have to stand before God and give an account of how I respond to Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and the guy that's sitting next to me, that's, irritating the manure out of me. I probably should have used a little better word there.
Well, you have been out with the cows, so maybe that's why you thought of that first.
Yes, yes, still in my, still wafting, Anyway, we need to keep in mind one day we all stand before God, every one of us.
Right. And it also, when I've seen this time and time again, when you wish ill will on somebody else, it always comes back to you. I mean, you should never do that. Bethany, talking about Republicans, said, wait, they've made and distributed a huge batch of Kool-Aid. Maybe that's, the one thing that they've done. Linda said, if Republicans are supportive, they may want to drop the word impeachment and just use the word inquiry. If you follow we don't really follow Q, though. Wonder if it would help. Linda said, all will be revealed. Lori said, amen, Bill. Sherry said, hi from Canada, where the loose cannon at the helm of our country will now hopefully be kept on a short leash with a liberal minority. Blessings to you for broadcasting this information. Thank you, Paul and Lori. Norman Doe, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce it, so maybe I can just stop there. And Bethany said, may the Lord rebuke them. And Gladys said, Bill and Susan, please, how would you say we pray for our unsaved family members? I get discouraged in flesh. I would say you just be continuously and consistently praying for your family members who are unsaved. And then, you're planting the seed and God does the rest. Bill?
You just persevere in that. I mean, that's all you can do.
That's all you can do, yes.
You just persevere.
And Lynn said the power to the prayer. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit. We talked about this a moment ago. You mentioned Tulsi Gabbard. We see her name come up a lot. It's concerning to me because in some ways, I think the Democrats don't like her and they want to keep her out. And that's why Hillary was attacking her the other day. On the other hand, I see some Republicans who are starting to say, wow, Gabbard could be an alternative, I guess, to President Trump. I mean, after all, she's a veteran. She looks nice. She's professional. She's presentable. But I want to go into a little bit about why Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is not who people think she is.
Yeah.
Let's see, a couple of things about her. She's a Samoan American, and she also is a practicing Hindu. She's an environmentalist. She is an Army National Guard veteran. She's still a major in the National Guard. From what I can find out about her, She has a very pro-Iran stance. She devotes a full page on her campaign website to Iran, kind of unusual. She supports the anti-Semitic boycotting of Israel. She says she's against war with Iran. That just kind of like came out of nowhere because she's kind of trying to make it sound like President Trump wants to go to war with Iran.
Right.
And so she's against it when nobody's even said anything about a war. She says that war with Iran would strengthen Al Qaeda when Iran has provided Al Qaeda, with safe haven for many, many years and even supported them during the 9/11 attack, supposedly. She supported the Iran nuclear deal and calls for the U.S. to re-enter the deal. Now, stop me if this is sounding like a Republican here, because it doesn't to me. She said that she basically said Iran started the nuclear program because of fear of the U.S. terrorists. So the U.S. intervention. So she's blaming the United States for the reason that Iran has nukes.
So now, folks, let this sink in. What Susan just described, this person she just described, on the debate stage, sounds to be the most reasonable person up there.
Yep.
Let that sink in.
It's scary.
It is scary. And if a person who has this kind of takes these positions that she does, and yet still somehow or another sounds to be the most level-headed and reasonable on the debate stage, and even to the point that Hillary now is trying to smear her, good night. What would we have if any of these ended up in the Oval Office?
Now, Don said this is exactly why they pulled the shenanigan with Hillary to put Tulsi in the forefront, because Joe Biden is not the answer they fear. Let's face the Dems are a bunch of crazy loons, so they want a more normal candidate out there.
Now, who said that?
That was Dawn.
Dawn.
That's why.
Dawn, I wish you'd quit beating around the bush and just tell us what you really think.
I know she's holding back.
Yes, let it go, Dawn. Let it go.
Linda said she's a radical. Robin said she's pro-choice up until birth. And Linda Norman said it's Obama's little sister, sounds like. Tulsi is a globalist, Lori Medic said. I don't wish bad on Schiff. He's just a bad guy without a moral compass, convinced of his own magnificence, Monique said. Let's see. Hillary is a psyop that they are messing with us, Lori said. A couple other things. She was very much for pro-Obamacare and even beyond Obamacare. She was for criminal justice reform. She promotes sustainable energy policies, 2030 agenda and Agenda 21. Common sense gun control legislation. Get that, common sense gun control legislation. She co-sponsored gun control legislation against loopholes, which there aren't any. She would ban assault weapons, automatic gunfire prevention act. She calls her 2020 candidacy a threat to the foreign policy lies sold to the American people. So she is anything but a conservative that they are trying to convince you, they being the Democrats, are trying to convince you that she is. And, it's amazing that they're still talking about her because she is so low in the polls. I don't even think, can she even be in the next debate, So they're really trying their hardest.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just flabbergasted that. Did you get a sharp?
Yes, I certainly did.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, but that was.
I think it's okay now, but.
Is it okay now? All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying hard to make her look normal. In case they have to try to get her in front of President Trump, and they would have to do a lot. And again, I think they're trying to pull conservatives who don't know this history about her, trying to pull them over to try to maybe get her against President Trump in the end.
I don't know. It's incredible that anyone that's supposedly conservative could even take a second look at her and think that, oh yeah, she might be a valid, consideration, for the Oval Office. It's,
it's crazy.
Anybody on that side You know,
Right.
how can anyone consider that? I don't know.
Well, and let's look, if we have this video one, let's look at what the Democrats think
But
about Tulsi
that
Gabbard.
video is the one he could not get to work.
Okay, perfect. Maybe that
Okay.
was why the noise was. That was the women on the View screeching. Okay, so Nettie's. Nettie said, Barr talking up Catholic schools scares me. No good guys on either side. Trump will eat her for lunch, Dawn said. Yeah, it's true. I think he would, talking about Tulsi Gabbard. But I also think that, again, because she, on the outside, she looks so normal as compared to a Bernie Sanders and AOC and other people on the left, Buttigieg and Beto and all that.
Yeah.
She seems normal, but when you start peeling back the layers, she is not. She's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that you have to be cognizant of.
Well, and that's, you know, important. What you just said is important for us to remember, that the adversary is most dangerous when he poses as a minister of light, when he appears to be something good, or in this case,
Yes.
just halfway reasonable. That's when he's really dangerous. You know, it's when he's in a red suit carrying a pitchfork, you know, and it's obvious and it's blatant, then it's pretty easy to pick up on. But then, you know, he sneaks in. Well, what did she? I think the last debate she came in wearing this, you know, sporty white pantsuit, you know, looking real sharp and all this kind of stuff, and kind of standing out from the crowd and just being, how shall I say this, attractive.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
she's very attractive in that regard, and that's the
what Dawn
danger.
said. Easy on the eyes, those looks can be deceiving.
Mm-hmm.
And she just said that right after you did. That is a kind of the point too. If you look at everybody else, Tulsi is young, she's attractive, she's intelligent, she's a veteran. You know, all of that on the outside looks so good. But again, as you peel back the onion, somebody said the layers on the onion, you find out that what you thought was true is absolutely not true at all. So now I want to talk a little bit about Netanyahu. So he gave up on trying to form a government. He's handed it over to Gantz. He tried to meet with Gantz, I know, for like a solid week, and trying to get him to come in and talk, and he absolutely wouldn't do it. Your thoughts about where we're headed with that?
You know, I don't know. I just genuinely don't know. A little surprised, I have to say. But it wouldn't be the first time I've been surprised, and, you know, then later on see God's wisdom in things. But I guess we'll have to see if Gantz can pull it off now, because that's not a sure thing either.
No.
I mean, it's still, I think, unless you know something I haven't heard, I mean, it's still very possible they may go to another election, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
And it's kind of looking like that's going to happen, and I think that would be in April of next year, because neither one of them supposedly have the numbers, you know, to form a Knesset. But you know, when you hand over the reins, though, something could happen. Gantz could take it. I mean, that is a possibility. But, you know, one of the things that we're not hearing anything about anymore because of what's happened, we're not hearing about the deal of the century, you know, that peace plan. We've heard about it last year. We're going to wait till after the April elections, and we're going to wait till after the September ones. And now it's just like falling off the radar.
Which is why I went to the whole thing with Pelosi and Schiff and all these people going over to Jordan. Makes me wonder, did that have something to do with all of that? I don't know. But it's interesting.
Well, Elizabeth Warren came out, I believe, over the weekend and said that the policy of the United States is for a two-state solution in Israel. So.
Well. Okay. Well,
I don't know. That wasn't my policy in the United States, but apparently that's, she knows something more than I do.
I guess so, but you know, I guess we know where it would go if she was sitting there behind the Resolute desk.
Absolutely, it would be, our relationship with Israel would certainly not be the same relationship we have today.
Well, I think if she were behind that desk, the whole nation would be on Prozac before that 4 years was up. You know. So.
or she'd pull a beer out of the refrigerator like she did before and try to convince us she's just one of us.
Just one of us, yeah.
Just, but I think I think we need to continue to pray for Israel, because so much is going on. There's so much chaos kind of going on in the Middle East right now, with Syria, with Turkey. Erdogan's meeting with Putin. And all of those things that are going on. That Israel's probably a little nervous, but nothing that they can't handle and will in the end handle because of God. But I think that we do need to continue to pray for Israel, for God's will over Israel to be in the the Knesset that is supposed to be formed, whatever that is.
Well, and then it will. It may not look the way we would prefer it look, but it will, because in the end, where Israel is concerned, and I think indirectly the United States to some degree, or at least the believers in the United States, and for that matter, the world, eventually it's going to be where Israel has no one to look to except the God of Israel, and that's what He's orchestrating. I have no doubts whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what happens.
And it's we will see what is happening, because all the some of the main players are all now in Syria, and kind of everything is focused right now on what's going on there. So let's just keep that going. I know that sounds bad, but I'm for God's will, and I know what the Bible says and where we're going, and I'm okay with it, because that's God's will. Whether it looks bad to me or somebody else, doesn't really matter. It's God's will, and it's working the way He said it would work.
Yeah.
So all right, now I want to talk a little bit. People need to stop idolizing Israel. They are not in Yah's will, and He will handle that. According to Scripture, Israel is His people, not a piece of land.
Israel is His people, yeah, but part of that covenant involved land. You can't extract the land of Israel from the covenant that God made with Abraham and with his seed. And so this is not about idolizing Israel as far as the political entity known as Israel today. I don't agree with everything the Israeli government does. I don't agree with everything the Israeli people do. No more than I agree with everything that my wife does. But I'm still in covenant with her. I'm in covenant with her, and I'm in covenant with the God of Israel. And so this idea that we idolize Israel because we have a pro-Israel stance and a pro-Israel message is, I'm sorry, it's misplaced.
Right. Don Adams says, Bill, your thoughts on Psalm 83 war happening before Ezekiel 38 war? Seems like Ezekiel 38 is brewing rapidly.
What's to say they can't be connected? What's to say? I don't know. As far as a chronological order, I gave up on that a long time ago. Psalm 83 to me is happening right now, not necessarily in a conventional way, but with ideologies and philosophies and things like this. Because Psalm 83 is about Edom and Ishmael rising up, and all these confederates they have rising up against the God of Israel, taking it out on God's people. That's already happening. That's happening in our streets right now. That's happening in every town in America in some form or fashion. So how it looks conventionally, in the Middle East, I think could very well be connected to Ezekiel 38 and 39. In fact, it might be the hook that is described in Ezekiel 38 and 9. So I don't know. I'm just, like everybody else when it comes to these things. I talk about it, speculate about it. This could happen, that could happen. But as we've already mentioned in this program more than once, when God does things, it almost never looks the way we thought it was going to look.
Mm-hmm. Now, Israel, Dawn said, Israel is His people, and they were and are a part of God's plan. Bethany said, what? Shock, because you don't agree with her all the time. Linda said, we are grafted into Israel. They are us. Linda said also, love you, Bethany. That's what I thought about the Psalm 83 war, Dawn said. And so true, Barry Cruz Reyes said. So, I think, one of the things we'll have to just wait and see what's going on, and see, we won't know exactly what it's going to look like. Like you said, Bill, it's not exactly like what we think. And so when it happens, then we can say, I think that's what it was. I think it happened,
Well,
So,
that's usually the way it is. Oh, now I see.
yeah.
And I don't want to get too sidetracked here. I'm not really sure where we are on time, but it almost always is that the Father, he does something. He doesn't reveal the whole plan. He doesn't let us see how everything's going to happen. He just tells us what's going to happen, and then when it does, we recognize it.
Exactly.
And there is instance after instance in the Scripture where once it happened, then people understood. Then oh yeah, that was what was written in the Scripture. They had it happening this way or that way, and then when it did happen, then they recognized it. And I just think that that's what it'll be. It's not wrong to speculate and think about this, as long as we don't get locked into it's got to be this or it's got to be that.
Right. Right.
So anyway.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to go on to another subject. This one is a political subject that's really important. This is in regards to the Justice Democrats. Now, if you don't know who the Justice Democrats are, let me read you just a little bit about them. Justice Democrats is working to elect a mission-driven caucus in Congress that will fight for solutions that match the scale of our many crises. These are skyrocketing inequality, catastrophic climate change, deepening structural racism as the country becomes more diverse, and the corporate takeover of our democracy. We need a Democratic Party that fights for its voters, not just its corporate donors. That's why we helped elect leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Congress. We need leadership in the Democratic Party that will represent and fight for our communities. Now, if you don't know who these people are, you need to go to justicedemocrats.com, spend some time on there, and figure out who they are. They have basically gotten elected people. You can see the 4 squad members there: Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Presley, and Ilhan Omar. And they want to go out and put more people in who are progressives, who are just like the ones that we have right now in the House that destroyed their own Democratic Party and made it a very progressive socialist Democrat Party. Here's an incumbent that they have, and let me just describe. This is Raul Grijalva. I don't know how Grijalva of Arizona. He served in Congress for over a decade, fighting for Medicare for all, $15 an hour living wage, free college, taking on mass incarceration, and making sure Wall Street, large corporations, and the billionaire class pay their fair share. So he's an incumbent. And then we, of course, can't leave out California. Ro Khanna. As the congressman representing California's 17th district, Ro is focused on getting special interest and lobbying money out of politics, making college affordable, and fighting for renewable energy and the environment. We have a new member that they're trying to get elected, and his name is Jamaal Brown. And I think we have a photo of him. So he is in New York, and he recently said, after the shooting, I don't know if you know about the shooting that was in Dallas, Texas, where a police officer was called to Atiana, I believe was her name, called to her house. She was sitting with her nephew. She heard a noise outside. She picked up a gun because she thought somebody was trying to break in. It was a police officer outside. He saw her with the gun. I think he may have yelled at her and she probably didn't hear him. I don't know. And he shot and killed her. So Jamaal Bowman is this man's name with the Justice Democrats. And what he would like to do now, his platform is he would like to disarm the police.
Yeah, that's worked out well for the UK.
Yes.
When we had that picture up of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse there, or the squad as you call them.
I call them a Jezebel squad, but I was going to hold back on saying that.
Well, I'm going to say it. The Jezebel spirit that was on Hillary Clinton, and this is just me. God can do whatever He wants, but here's what I suspect. This is what I perceive. it's like the spirit that was on Hitler. And I'm not saying Hillary is a Hitler, okay? And as far as I know, she's not, responsible for killing 6 million Jews and millions more. It may be more like 100 or 200 or something like that. But anyway, that's beside the point. But the spirit that was on Hitler didn't go away when Hitler died. It just found somebody else to work in and work through. All right? So this Jezebel spirit that there's no doubt in my mind has been on and worked through Hillary Clinton, and not that she's the only one, but now it's multiplied in these, AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Presley, and it is multiplying. And this is a danger. I mean, this isn't just a danger to the United States. This is a danger to the body. We sang a song many years, and I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's called "The Days of Elijah." Have you heard that song? Okay.
No.
All right. Well, it's just the lyrics are prophetic. It's taken from Scripture. It's probably 25 years at least in age. But it talks about how these are the days of Elijah, what God is doing in the earth, because these are the days of Elijah. And that's something that's taken from Malachi chapter 4. But what I like to point out to people, or what I feel like I should point out to people, is that if these are the days of Elijah, speaking prophetically, then these are also the days of Jezebel, because Jezebel was the antagonist to Elijah. Ahab was in there, he was kind of a wishy-washy kind of a guy. But Jezebel was that strong spirit that was warring against Elijah. And that's exactly what's going on in this country today. That's what's going on in this world today. That's what's going on in the body today, in our churches and our congregations. This strong Jezebel spirit. It doesn't have to be a woman,
right,
but very typically is. This is what's going on. And that spirit that was in Hillary Clinton, that is worked in her and perhaps still is, it is now multiplying, so to speak. And it's working in these women, and it can work in men too, like I said. So we need to be on guard, folks. We need to be alert. We need to be sober-minded. We need to be on our face. We need to be seeking the wisdom and the guidance that only the Spirit of God can give us, because we're to some degree, we're in uncharted waters.
Linda said, when Jesus dealt with demons, he cast them out. He did not destroy or kill these spirits. God will take care of them in the end. Amy Shalom says, sometimes the most heinous spirit finds the most goofy person, so that person just dismisses them, and it works. The workings are hidden. Just one, if you pay taxes, you support the government that supports Planned Parenthood. The blood is on many hands. Well, you have to pay taxes, so you don't really have a choice.
If you don't pay taxes, see how that works out for you.
Yeah. Deanna said, Bill, I've never heard this. Thank you. And Dawn said, it reminds me of how Jezebel met her folly. Robin said, amen, pray without ceasing. And I think that is kind of our theme for today, really, is pray without ceasing, because we see so many things where seemingly things are just falling apart. And falling into place, though, as God would have them go. I mean, can't say one, I don't think, without the other. But we do have to pray that God's will is where we want to go, what we support, and to pray for our president and pray for the administration, because it is an all-out spiritual battle that seemingly just gets worse by the moment. It's unfortunate, but it's where we are, and we're here for a reason.
Yeah, and on that note, I just have to remind everyone what the Messiah told us, that when you see these things beginning to happen, don't look down, look up. Lift up your head, because your redemption's at hand, and we need to keep that in mind. That's what encourages me to soldier on in these days, knowing that all this is evidence that the kingdom is at hand.
Absolutely. And that is our joy, where our joy comes from, that we will be soon reunited with God and our redemption draws nigh. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. And Bill, glad you're back. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, your questions. And until next week, Take care. God bless you. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.